Hello, and welcome to the Surplus Geek Podcast. I'm Jake, and I am joined again by Bailey.
Hey, thanks for having me back on, Jake.
Of course. And today, we're going to be talking about researching. So, what's there to talk about researching? Kind of seems straightforward.
So for researching, what we're going to talk about today is basically like searching up sources and pretty much going off from there, as in doing your own research, as in, let's just say you want to get into kits, you want to start researching a different, I'm trying to think of the word, like a squad during World War II, like a unit, infantry division, stuff like that. So pretty much from so on and so forth.
Specific event.
Yeah, pretty much event. Yeah. Everything like that.
Like if it's Battle of the Bulge, they're going to be wearing cold weather gear.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, something like that.
And like small bits and pieces, like you want to do something very unique and different than just, very generic stuff. Like let's just say the 101st Airborne, like were there any other airborne divisions?
Well, I mean, yeah, when you get into the 101st, for instance, you have the different helmet markers and stuff.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure 101st had the wrong helmet markers when they jumped in on Normandy. So there's a good YouTuber out there, Battle Order, I think is the name of the YouTuber.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they do a really good video on it. But just besides plugging other people,
that's not our job.
Yeah, that's not our job for today. But researching, I think, is one of the most important topics because we all buy things, we all collect, we all started somewhere. And we've talked about buying, we've talked about preserving. Now we're going to talk about researching history. And, right off the bat, why do you want to research?
I think it's very fun.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
With me for researching, like I said, I was a curator, I'm a historian. And for me, researching, it's just a very, very unique aspect of doing your own, like, independent research and stuff like that. It actually makes you feel like you're an actual historian doing your own work.
Yeah, you put that Indiana Jones hat in. This belongs in a museum.
Pretty much. I love Indiana Jones. But in college, in order for me to graduate with a degree in history, I actually had to write a seminar paper in which I had to do my own independent research, such as gathering resources and data.
Like primary sources and
primary, secondary sources. Yep. I had to find firsthand accounts of newspapers, propaganda posters, books written during that time, even before or even after, or even today with, modern day historians. My topic, if you want to know, was about that was a year ago, but it was the exclusion of Chinese workers from the 1850s up until, I believe, late 1880s, 1890s, something like that, during the California gold rush.
Oh, yeah.
And finding of the gold in the Black Hills in North or South Dakota and all that stuff, along with including bits and pieces of Native American history with the wars and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and excluding them from there because we actually found gold, so that's why we
started drawing lines around the gold to prevent. Yeah, it makes sense. Well, that doesn't make sense, but yeah, it makes historically it makes. Yeah.
So that was my paper, and I was about
those actions.
We don't approve of that, but that was my paper. It was about 20 or 30 pages long. So much dedicated hard work was put into it, and I am very proud for how well that paper came out.
So we're going to skip over a topic because I think it actually should go after this. So superficial versus official, right?
Yes.
That would be considered official, of course.
Pretty much, yes.
Superficial would be when you just type it into Google, you go to Wikipedia.
You find like the first article,
yes,
Wikipedia, or like the first like image, and you base it off from there, pretty much.
Exactly. So, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And the reason we bring it up is that that's where you start from. You get a baseline. The key to it though is what you learn on Wikipedia isn't always correct, or even if you go to the, say, Gas Mask Wikia, it's usually curated by people that know what they're talking about for the most part. But there's some articles that are old, outdated, need updating, and of course, there's people out there that are updating them pretty much every day, and they put good information on there. So depending on who wrote the article, you can get something that's more detailed than you could probably find out there. But that's superficial sourcing. It's not exactly. It's not your go-to.
Yep.
If you're going to write a paper or write a book on something. When you get into the official sources, you're talking about going to the sources page on that Wikipedia.
Yep.
And
so you basically just scroll all the way down to the bottom, and they have their sources referenced
Hopefully.
down there. Hopefully, sometimes they do, sometimes they
Yeah.
don't. But if it's a big article, let's say World War II, you're gonna find hundreds,
Yeah.
if not probably thousands, of sources. You can just base off your research from that. Or throughout the article, you will find like numbered bulletins that say, let's say number 4. It takes you all the way down to the page and gives you the 4th source that was used at that time of the article that was
it's
written.
annotated.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's pretty much where it gets into the official researching, where, like, let's just say you look up World War I on the Wikipedia, and you want to learn exactly about how did World War I start from the German side, like how did they get drawn in. You can just scroll through the article itself. You just find Germany declared war on Russia of this day of 1914. Then it has like a number 7. You click that number 7, takes you down to the source at the bottom. Then you click that source that was linked in the article. Then you pretty much go off from there. Then you keep, you dive into that little
Yeah, then you're going to start looking.
rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's going to start referencing stuff that's a little heavier material, like books.
Yep.
Like books written by people who have their own sources, which then you have to dive into those sources. And by the way, I know this is a little bit of a obvious thing for most people out there, but not everyone's going to know how to research. But everyone can be a researcher, really, in my mind. And I'm not going to make the reference joke that I always make, but it's it doesn't have to be, if you already know this stuff, great. But some people won't, so we're going to kind of, what the military would say, Barney style, but I don't really like that. But that's kind of what it is. We're breaking it down Barney style, and we'll go from there and stuff. So anyways,
it's also, some of these sources too can also not be in English.
This is true, especially if you're dealing with anything international.
Definitely. Like, let's just say, like I said, the German side, you can literally find newspapers that are written into German saying, like, it's their own perspective.
Yeah,
And every country will have their own perspective, making themselves try to look better than the other, and pretty much giving themselves a right to defend their country, or it's their act, so they kind of like base it off from there.
Yep, exactly. And that is something to look, and also that's important to realize when you're writing a piece up on something, that there's going to be biases involved. You got to kind of have to sift through that. It's a little bit out of the scope of this podcast, because that's something that you just kind of have to read other people's opinions on it and kind of
deal with it at the same time.
Yeah, sometimes you can't get rid of the bias, especially I can't think of a good example at the moment, but that's just something to keep in mind, back of your head. Before we get into a lot of the other into like kind of primary sources and what you should look for, there's going to be times where you're not going to be able to find a source.
Yeah,
this is kind of the topic we skipped because I wanted to jump back to it. Gap filling and assumptions are going to have to happen.
Yep.
But you got to be careful with how much you how much you assume, and yeah, and you gotta be careful how much you assume and how much you gap fill. Sometimes you just gotta leave it empty. It just is what it is. Because the minute you start making too many assumptions, that's when myths get created. That's when misinterpretations happen, and that can be more dangerous for history than just having it be blank.
I agree with
that. At least
that.
in my opinion.
No, you're right. Where, people, there's so many examples out there that it's just so hard to give it a perfect example, because there's so many good examples out there.
Well, a good example, I can give a very clear example. Death Traps by Belton Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Death Traps is a good book, but it's written from a person's perspective on repairing destroyed tanks, specifically Shermans, and he wrote about the Sherman being a bad tank based on what he saw. But if you look at the stats and the facts of the war, Sherman crews had some of the best survivability, and the Shermans were an excellent tank. Had a bad rap for years, and I'd like to personally thank the chieftain for bringing to light the greatness. There's a couple other historians involved, but this whole fight to make the Sherman not as bad as a tank. But it's a good example where, in his case, he was basing it on what he saw, but he wasn't diving deeper than he wasn't going into. And it is what it is. I mean, some people won't change their opinion on the Sherman, but I mean, I the way I look at it is the facts don't lie. The war wasn't as simple as it seems, or in the case of the Chief Nana thing about a tank destroyer battalion in Italy
Yep.
lobbing 87 or 88 HE rounds to take out, and only like 10 AP rounds to take out a couple German tanks. You know, and like we play video games, it's like, you know, that's not how you do it in video games, so you assume it's not how it's done in real life. But I guess back then they just peppered the tanks with HE rounds to try to concuss the guys out of it. It is what it is, but it's a different. History isn't always as straightforward as it seems. Things don't always go the way you think it would go just based on assumptions. So it's just important to always keep that in mind. We all make the mistake of making assumptions. I've made a lot of assumptions. Actually, serving has kind of changed my assumptions and things, made me realize, look at it a different light, especially like just the challenges and how why sometimes equipment seems kind of designed weird, because it's designed to kind of be for the situations that aren't good. So it needs to be able to work. Mm-hmm. So it works. It's sometimes a little more difficult than it needs to be because it has to be. And that's just how it is. But yeah, gap filling and assumptions are something that's going to happen. If you can't, sometimes it's something you know from referencing from books that there's a TM out there or an FM. You can't find it. There's not a copy on the internet. There's no one scanned it. No one has it. You might never see it in your time.
Yep.
And unfortunately that happens. We'll talk more about that a little bit later with scanning, but that's going to happen. So, but that goes right into like the official sources.
Yeah.
You know?
But I'll get back to the topic. We're not trying to like say that, you know, basic assumptions and whatnot, gaffling is a bad thing. It's just when it's overdone to a certain amount that it actually is harmful to a historian and pretty much on their points and whatnot, and like what actually could have happened during that time. And it got, you know, tossed around a lot with the information from like that time to up until now. Then it's like loose in translation pretty much.
Yeah, it's a black and white thing where like Belton Cooper's book's good, but now it's people either have it's a terrible book or it's a great gospel book. Like it goes either way. There's a lot of gray, there's a lot of nuance there. And like some of the information in this book is amazing. He had a direct hand in the Super Purging when it was overseas and stuff, and putting on that armor and stuff. At least that's the story. So it's, you know, like you said, it's not something, we're not trying to say it's bad. We're just saying be careful when you make assumptions. Try to back anything you can up as best as you can.
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can do, is try to back it up. It is what it is. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. If you make a mistake, accept that you make a mistake and just move on. You know, it doesn't have to be the end of the world if you make a mistake.
No, but like
I made a lot of mistakes.
We all do.
Yeah.
But I think a perfect example, and this is always like tossed around in the community itself, with the gas mask communities, that soldiers would either use or ditch their gas mask. I think a lot of assumptions are to be made here, but it also goes off of like firsthand accounts of the soldier and what they would have done.
Well, because a lot of them, World War II, for instance, used their gas mask bag as like a musette bag.
Yes, I was going to get to that point, actually.
Yeah, sorry.
It's fine.
Undercut you a little bit there.
Because I actually do have a great-grandfather that served in Japan from, I believe, 1943 up until 1945, until the occupation of Japan. And I'm going to go off an assumption here, and maybe he might have done this, but he was a part of the Signal Corps, the 82nd Signal Corps, or Signal Battalion, sorry. But if he were to be issued let's just say a lightweight gas mask bag, and he was in the jungle for another 2 more days on patrol, like with his squad, carrying a, you know, radio or something like that, I would ditch that mask and carry an extra day of food and water.
Water, ammo.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know when you're going to, you know, get out of that jungle.
Ounces or pounds, pounds or pain.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how it works.
That's my way of assuming. Like, I think this is a safe assumption, but we don't know what they've done. So we're just going to assume he could have done that. He could have not.
And firsthand accounts are a good source.
Yeah.
To a point. We have to remember that people's memories get hazy. They start misremembering things. I mean, that's just something you have to kind of keep in the back of your head, that, you know, the old guy is going to forget something.
Yeah.
That's fine. But you just got to, you know, if it conflicts, if it conflicts with something that you know it just isn't true, you just say yes, and you just go with it. And you just know that their memory is just a little hazy, and that's fine.
You know what's a really good source? Interviews.
Yes, especially interviews in the first 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
There's some good interviews out there of World War II vets within 10 years. I mean, Audie Murphy, for instance, a lot of his interviews and stuff, they're all within the first 10 years after the war, you know?
Which is still kind of fresh to
Very
him.
fresh. That's why, that's why you can see the pain in his face. Audie Murphy suffered a lot for what he had to go through.
Especially
for the hero.
Until the day he died from,
yeah.
I think he did drugs, right?
Drugs and alcohol.
He did a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he had it pretty rough. I know it hurt him. And, we wouldn't know if it wasn't for the fact that he told his story.
Yeah.
I know some people think that he was doing it for glamour or for, whatnot, but I think it's important that he told his story in the way he did. It's a good first-hand account of a Medal of Honor recipient.
Yep. Especially World War I interviews, where a majority of the interviews were conducted during the 60s and 70s, and they're probably like almost 80 years old, and they don't remember as much as they used to as they were back in the trenches, raiding trenches and whatnot.
Medical technology was not as
good as it is today, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, so concussions and stuff.
Concussions, PTSD. Well, back then it was known as shell shock.
Yeah. Yeah, they just wrote it off, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. They didn't really care about you.
So, that's all. First-hand accounts are extremely important because they're the connection, the literal human connection with history. So, having first-hand accounts is incredibly important.
Talk to your uncle, talk to your grandfathers,
your father,
talk to your dad.
Especially now, talk to your brother, sister.
If they feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, obviously, make sure that they consent to having this conversation. Don't just start going in on it. But especially now with the current what's going on in the world, there's guys and women out there serving that have a conversation with them if they're willing. It's you can ask me questions about my military service. I'm an open book about it. It's fun to talk about to a certain point.
Trust me, it's fun.
Yeah, and I didn't do anything, so I used to love having conversations with the guys in my unit that had deployed. It's different, but and hopefully I can have some of them on because I think they'd be a good guest to have talk. But that goes into books, TMs, FMs. There is documentations, there is studies written on this stuff. For instance, the development of Alice. There's a whole study written on the development of Alice in 1978. So it's recent. It's written by Natick. There's studies on all this stuff. And those are the type of sources you want to find, because those are direct sources from people who had direct hand in the creation of whatever you're talking about. And obviously researching goes well beyond military service. We're talking about the actual battle history, unit history. Yeah. For instance, my unit has lineage that goes back to the original militia created in Salem, Mass in 1636. So it's 1636, yes, because it's December 13th, 1636 is the creation of the National Guard, technically. So we have that lineage going all the way back. It's a different unit over time. The unit carries over the lineage and stuff. It's kind of weird, but that's crazy when you think about it. So this could be anything from something like that to, little pieces of history, little pieces of gear, why medals are the way they are and stuff, all that stuff.
Yep.
So books are definitely, there's a lot of great resources for books. There's a lot of not good resources for books. I mean, that's just how it is. And not only, there's a lot of books out there that people knock that I think are not, you shouldn't take word for word, but they're good starter books. They're good, good general idea of what you're looking for. Just don't take everything that it says. If you find a conflicting source and you trust the conflicting source more, go with that source.
Yeah.
A lot of this kind of talking with the community, talking with other people, they're doing research into it and figuring out, which source is better, which source is, not as good. And then just kind of weeding through everything and figuring out. I think FM and TMs are really good.
They are.
But remember, what it says in the TM or FM is not always what guys do in the field.
Yeah, they do whatever's comfortable for them.
Yeah, they do what works. Whatever gets the job done, they'll do. So, it's just, and it also units, commanders and such have override authority, and they'll change SOP for your unit. So that will change too. So you might not be able to figure that out. It's easier nowadays because a lot of this stuff is recorded. But back in the day, you might not be able to figure out what a unit SOP was in Vietnam, unless you could find someone that can remember what their unit SOP was, or they, for some reason, have it written down somewhere. So that's just something to keep in mind. And again, this applies to just about everything in the military surplus / history community, across the board. I mean, again, he's got a history degree. I don't. I'm just some guy. But, so I'm only speaking from an opinion.
You still have a fair bit of knowledge,
I try.
Oh, you do.
I try to be at least. I don't like to open my mouth, and I try not to be wrong. It's fine being wrong. I just don't like being wrong. So I try not to be wrong. Yeah. So I won't open my mouth until I at least kind of know what I'm talking about. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Hey, what is it? What are you going to do? So I accept it. But I think that's key. Be humble about researching. Somebody says something and you don't agree with them, fine. But make sure you back it up. Yeah. And if they're like, if you get into a kind of a little conversation and they don't have sources right now, don't give them a hard time. Not everyone's in the moment is able to bring up their source.
Not everyone has that
on them
research capability yet.
Yeah,
it's a thing that you have to learn yourself in a way.
Get organized.
Yeah, get organized. Learn by yourself and ask for help. Nothing wrong with that. Just don't cave into like let's just say you want to research a topic that you don't really know much about, and someone says just Google it. What do I Google? You keep asking questions like that. Like, what do I do? Like what do I Google? Like, it's like all this kind of stuff, like broad.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's my problem with the just Google it, because if you just type in the thing, you're not gonna find anything. You might, but it's going to be like very vague. Like, oh, here's the thing you're talking about, but that's it. That's all we're going to give you. Like, it's just going to be a very vague explanation of whatever you're trying to look up. But then you get into a circle where you just keep going back to vague land, and you just never get the direct answer.
So then you have to like search up like big words, something that's relating to the thing you're looking for. Yeah. Then you might find it.
It's kind of like searching on eBay. Same kind of concept.
Yeah.
Where you kind of have to work around it sometimes to find the information. Because, like, you also don't want to just use Google. I suggest, and I do this myself, try to use other search engines. Use DuckDuckGo.
Is that what you use?
Yeah, I use DuckDuckGo. I use both. I use Google and DuckDuckGo.
I just use Google pretty much.
Well, the reason why Google and DuckDuckGo, because they differ, their searches are differently curated, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So DuckDuckGo might give you different sources, different information, different images too. So I like to use both, so that way I'm covering as much as I can. But you can use Bing. I know it's a kind of a meme, but like you can use Bing.
Bing's not that bad, honestly.
It's really not. It's got the power of Microsoft behind it, so it's not like it's I like DuckDuckGo, but use what you want to use. You gotta and like when I'm searching for something, I literally do not just go Google. And then I don't just go DuckDuckGo. I actually go to Google and I do the same thing, and I see the difference and I compare them. I just bring up both monitors because I might miss something.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you'll get to a point where you'll kind of know where to look. There's some websites it's like Liberated TMs and FMs. It's a website. It's all like they scan a bunch. It's kind of like maybe like in the 2000s. It like looks old, so it's not the most easiest to navigate, but it's a great resource for finding FMs and TMs. You gotta look around, and like I said, I don't like saying just Google it because
it's just vague.
It's vague, and honestly, like
it's not helpful.
If you
it honestly isn't helpful.
If you get a common question, just like have a document that's copy and paste.
Yeah,
and just copy it and paste it into like say Discord. Someone's asking you a question, just copy and paste it.
Some knowledge is better than no knowledge.
And that way you can be like, hey, here you go. I have this copy. You can just say, hey, I have this copy and paste. So this is like a quickie on it. And when I have more time, I'll try to detail it out.
Yeah.
Or if you wrote an article on Wiki, you could just say, hey, go check out the wiki I did on X. It has everything, or the Wikia. You can just go on the Gas Mask Wikia, for instance. Yeah. I haven't done anything on it personally, but like there's a lot of people in the community that do. You can just say, hey, I did this. It's pretty accurate. I got the sources down here. If it's missing a source, just tell me. Like, just be humble about it. Try to direct people without being vague. And I'm not calling out anyone in particular. I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm just saying, like, as a community trying to get the information out there, we should be trying to spread as much information because we want people to be educated. We want people to know these things. And personally for me, like, I want to teach people this stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I always said, I asked me about military service. I love talking about my military service. It's a huge piece of me. It's a huge piece of my life. It's 6 years of my life that I spent doing that stuff. So it's cool to teach people.
Yeah.
And it's something that, like, you gotta, this kind of went to the next topic. I already just kind of flowed right into it.
That's all right.
Passing on the information, as much as you can.
We can just flip-flop back and forth anyways.
Well, we kind of get to that point.
We should stay on track though.
But we kind of are.
Yeah.
Passing on information is overall, the whole point of this podcast. The reason why I picked researching, I was thinking about it the other day when I was at work, is that researching is the lifeblood of the community. Because we can all own all this stuff, but otherwise it'd just be random junk that we own.
Yeah.
Just pieces of things. The minute you start researching, it opens up this huge world of what it was, how it was used, how it was created, or how it was prototyped, how it was, what research they did to come up with these things.
Like FlakVex, for example.
Exactly.
Because fragmentation casualties cause up to 70% of all casualties during the Second World War. Except for bombers, though, because that was an exception, because that's what they dealt with every mission they've done.
Yeah, and they actually had flag.
Out in the field, it was fragmentation casualties. So that's when they started to adopt and prototype fragmentation flak vests during the Korean War, which minimized the casualty count done by fragmentation.
Yeah, and the rest is history. Basically.
And which, developed into the Vietnam War for both Marines, helicopter pilots, and U.S. Army forces on the ground.
Yep.
Then through the 80s, 90s, and even today, with
it's all draws from the same lineage.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah. It's basically all research.
It's the same thing with helmets.
Yeah.
World War I taught that we needed helmets.
Yeah, because fragmentation too.
Yeah,
splinters. Yeah,
it was coming. Yeah. So exactly. So it's that's the cool part about researching is you start to. I mean, that some of the stuff is basic. We're using obvious examples, but it's fun to learn and stuff. And it's also, like I said, you should, if you're going to research, you should go into it with a mind that you're going to have to pass it on and teach it.
Yeah.
Because, like, what's the point of learning? I mean, I guess you can learn it for yourself, but I don't know. That's kind of boring to me. I know something. Cool. I'd rather be able to be like, hey, everyone, look, this is a cool thing and stuff. And I don't want to, like, it doesn't have to be gloaty. It's like, hey, look at this cool thing. We all love this stuff. We all want to, pass it on. So that's how I look at it. And I think that's how most people should look at it. But
it's like, for a perfect example, like during World War I, like when the United States got involved in 1917, they needed weapons and other equipment to...
Yeah, we needed light machine guns.
Yeah, to successfully clear our trenches in order to win the war. So we created the M1903 Pedersen device, which was able to hold 40 rounds, and that was like, to bop off, entire trench line of Germans.
It's too bad it wasn't that good, apparently.
It wasn't good, but the concept of the idea was done through research. Like, hey, we want to clear a trench as fast as possible.
It's the same thing where the Tommy gun comes
from. The Thompson, the BAR.
Thompson's history starts directly from the trenches World War I. So it goes right off of that, and it goes in. I mean, it's
all research.
And why the United States decided, I don't know the exact reason was World War I, but why the United States started pushing towards semi-auto rifle versus bolt action during the 20s.
I wish I could answer that because I actually did a little bit
of
research.
I probably
during
knew at one
year.
point, but man, I will say one thing. When you start doing so many different things, so many different topics, information gets pushed out.
My guess, here we go, assumptions.
Yeah.
My guess is that, they wanted to have as much firepower as they can that was very light as possible.
Well, we were switching into maneuver warfare, kind of, and maneuver warfare is all about suppressing, moving, suppressing,
covering,
moving.
Flanking, and stuff like that. All that stuff.
So that's where I think
research also changes the evolution, warfare. Yeah,
evolution of combat is huge. And really since World War II, we've kind of been in a certain, like, we've been kind of set, and there's little things that have changed and how squads maneuver and stuff. But it's basically kind of the same. Like machine gun theory is actually something that you learn in the military. We sat down and we were taught machine gun theory. And it goes over everything from the basics, like grazing fire, which is supposed to be, I think it's 1 meter above the ground. They call it grazing fire because it's over the grass. You're like grazing.
Yeah.
To all sorts of stuff like arcing your rounds and just like how to use it as an area weapon versus a point weapon, all that stuff. And it's called machine gun theory for a reason. It's a theory on, and this is stuff that's been learned obviously since World War I, and it's just been refined and refined and refined over years. So it all goes into it. And again, the key to researching is you can do just the item. For instance, you're doing an item, or you can look at the item and then branch off into where the item was used, branch off into how it was developed. Like you look at modern day gear. Actually, look at Alice, for instance. And yes, I am going to do a whole thing on all this. At some point, don't hold me to it. All right? Just, it's coming.
Soon.
Hopefully. Soon TM. But Alice gear directly relates to 1967, 1956. 1956 is directly related to 1923 and 1936 pistol belt, which is directly related to 1910 gear. It's one big long line of adaptation and changes and minor fixes and stuff. Now, 1956 really changed the game up with the slide keepers.
Yep.
But it's this very Alice still has the hanger on the bottom, so you can still hang you still hang the holster on. So it just continues through, and that to me is very fascinating. It's fun to learn about that, because it's they're oh, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing, but it still needs a little bit of fine tweaking. We could do this, in Vietnam they're oh man, canvas really isn't working out for us we gotta go to nylon. And I mean, nylon's the standard now for everything. So it's fun. That's all I can say. And I think one of the key things it's kind of a huge shift, but it's going back. Scanning documents. If you have a document and you don't think anyone's seen it, or you don't think it's really you can get it on the internet, or it's kind of not common to find on eBay, please scan it and just put it up there.
Yep.
Just throw it up there, put it as a PDF, throw it somewhere. I don't know how you want to do it, but just I'm going to try to do that for everything I have, just so that it's out there. I don't think, it's, I know you paid money for it, but just, you don't really own it in a sense. It's kind of like a public thing in my mind. So just throw it up there. The people need this information.
Pretty much whatever you post or publish, just by thinking of it, you can actually make a huge difference in the community itself, especially for one person that might be also researching the same thing you are, and you just don't know it yet.
Yep.
You publish that one thing, he's going to gain knowledge from that,
or she.
He or she, thank you. Let's just say they.
Yeah, that's better.
They will gain knowledge from that, and they can also expand that knowledge to other collectors as well, or researchers, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can make their day.
Oh yeah.
Big time. They could be it could be the one piece that maybe they're doing a video or writing an article and stuff, and you had that one piece and you put it out there. You're the hero of the day. You just made their day.
Give yourself a pat on the back.
Exactly. Give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself a hug. What? Well, it's true though. You really can make it.
It's a good feeling.
It's happened to me a few times where someone's come up answered a question that I didn't know or didn't realize that I was asking. Because it was just something in there, and I was wow, that's amazing. I got to go save this somewhere on my computer, save it, bookmark it, whatever it is. I have a million bookmarks now, because I'll just find something bookmark. Oh, bookmark. And it's just I had to go in and reorganize it, and I have all these folders for it. It's a mess.
That's a good feeling too. When you're done actually researching something that actually you feel accomplished about, closing all the tabs is such an accomplishment.
I never close my tabs.
I love it because, like I said, I've researched my paper. I probably had 20 or 30 tabs open for a specific, event or whatever, or, whatever. And just being able to close all those tabs was so refreshing for once.
Yeah, I can feel that. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to keep them open because you don't want to lose your spot. It's almost
that's basically what it was.
Yeah. It's like a literal bookmark, not
until your application just automatically updates itself, which kind of sucks because you got to find that progress all over again.
Yeah. And or if it refreshes and it resets the top of the page and you're oh man.
And does it have the option where it says scroll back down to where you last were? Or something like that.
And you're
which I think every website should have.
Especially if it's in a long, form, written out format.
Forms.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And actually that's something we didn't think about. Forms can literally save your life when it comes to research.
Forms are literally a think tank.
The U.S. Military Forum is amazing. There's one man on there. He passed away a while ago now. I think 2014. Craig Pickall or something like that. He put out a lot of information, and he has detailed breakdowns of web gear and stuff, and that's an amazing resource. It's got pictures, everything.
Yeah.
Hopefully that site never goes down. Hopefully they're able. I mean, it's dedicated in his memory. That's how important this man was to the community. You check out the U.S. military forum. It's not always going to be correct, but like for the most part, there's people vetting it. There's people going through. You can read it out. You can see the information being figured out in a line, which is great. You can make your own decisions, make your own determinations.
Yeah,
I recommend. But forums are huge. If you find a forum, Discord is huge. That doesn't have to just be, other researchers are another tool to researching.
Yep.
Making friends and talking to people and giving them, you guys work together to figure this stuff out. Because they might not be doing the exact thing that you're doing, but it might cross over into what you're doing.
Yeah, actually.
And that can help you finish yours, and you might be able to vice versa. You might cross a little bit over into their area, and you can help each other out.
Yeah.
Or you're both going the same direction, and two heads are better than one. I mean, it's simple. So, sometimes egos get in the way, but you got to just put the egos aside.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I understand. But yeah, it is what it is. But I think that goes into kind of, I wouldn't say it's the final topic, but it's kind of the I don't know, the meat of it, I guess. I don't know how to put it. It's the, if you're going to research, if you want to take it, because that was kind of your thing.
It was actually.
Yeah.
So for researching, basically act like a teacher or a mentor. That's basically what researching is about. Because let's just say that you are very familiarized with a certain topic or subject.
One thing I can add to that, act like the teacher or mentor, also act like the student.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
Take both roles. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you're going to be the teacher, sometimes you're going to be the student.
Like I said, like once you're familiarized with a topic that you may seem like you're knowledgeable, you might meet that one person that actually has more knowledge than you do. So you learn from them.
Unless you have a legit PhD in that topic, in which case I will sit down and shut up.
I don't yet, but let's see and find out from here.
But you never know. You might run into someone and they're like talking about something, and then they're like, "I actually have a PhD in this," and you're like, "Oh, okay, I will."
I have a PhD in quantum.
Yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. Yep. You own this topic, but unless you run into a subject matter expert, like I said, go into it with that open mind of you being teacher, mentor, possibly, and also student.
Yeah.
And that way you learn, they learn, everyone learns.
There's nothing wrong with that, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. Open mind.
Yeah.
It's very incredibly important for
having
anything.
Have an open mind too is actually a good idea as well, because again, you want to learn as much as others. Like they want to learn from you, so you can also learn yourself and actually be a better researcher, a better person, and a better collector.
Better person, better collector, 100%. Especially because you want to open doors, not close them. You want to be friends with people because they might have something you want. And I'm not saying be friends just to get what you want, but I'm saying like you want to be friends with people. You don't want to have people jaded towards you just because you don't agree with their opinion on something.
Yeah.
It's fine. Be open-minded to them. Hopefully they can respect you in the same way. I don't want to get too preachy here, but hopefully they can respect you in the same way you both respect each other. Like, again, we can only further any of these communities because we're kind of broad talking about gas masks, collector communities, reenactors. It covers everyone.
Yeah.
This goes across the board. We're not really speaking in specifics. And again, at the end of the day, this is all our opinions, and we are totally welcome to criticism. So my Instagram DMs are open to anyone who wants to give me a little bit of critique, as long as it's fair. Same thing to Bailey.
I like that name.
Yeah. Send your hate mail to Bailey at Bailey's Military Collection, please. Not me. But seriously though, I think that the open-minded thing is incredibly important for life.
Yeah.
I think that's just a general broad lesson on life, is that you need to be open-minded to things. You need to be open-minded to not closing doors.
Yeah.
You don't have to say yes to everything. It doesn't have to be like the movie Yes Man, but it needs to be.
Or Yes Man from the game Fallout New Vegas.
Exactly. Yeah, Yes Man. Hey, I always pick Yes Man in there, right?
That's a great ending. No,
Yeah.
that's not.
You don't pick Yes Man when you pick House?
Some
To cons?
for the most part, NCR.
Oh, okay.
I like my
bootlegger.
kinda. I like my capitalistic future in a way.
I don't know. I'm mixed on that one.
I like my totalitarian democracy.
I know there's a few listeners out there that have to love New Vegas, so
I love New Vegas. I'm a diehard fan. If you
Yeah.
didn't know by now.
New Vegas is great.
Never getting carried away.
Yeah, we're going off topic. Hey, you can also do research into this stuff too.
Yeah.
Um,
Research Fallout New Vegas and come back to me if you find anything new that I haven't learned yet or found in the game.
it's true.
There you go. please DM me on Bailey's Military Collection on Instagram.
Yeah, do it. He's open. He's open-minded, folks.
I am sometimes.
So I would say yes. And the last bit to that whole teacher / mentor / also being a student is be professional about everything.
Yeah.
I know we're not professionals. Well, all right, some of us actually are. I'm not.
I'm not either.
I mean, you might be in the future. You'd have to agree. I'm just some guy that's recording things in his office and,
And here I am sitting in your office recording things as well.
I know, we're actually doing something with it. But,
For once.
Act professional to a point, to professional courtesy, professional in the sense that how you would act in a workplace or something. It doesn't have to be, it could be a little bit chill, but you don't have,
Yeah, don't come off as
egotistical or know-it-all.
a meanie weenie, I guess,
Yeah.
from SpongeBob.
I mean, you might be a know-it-all. And there's people that just know way more than me, so I'm not going to be, I'll admit it. Like, I don't know everything. So I don't think anyone can know everything, but you know what I'm saying. So,
Oh, yeah.
I would say, I would say that's pretty much it. I guess the whole point of this is that anyone can be a researcher. You don't need special accreditations, or you don't have to have a degree. I mean, you can. It helps. You have proper, in a sense, perspective on things. I'm just, again, some guy. But, anyone can do it. You just have to have the motivation and the passion for it. I mean, most of collecting, and I think this is going to be a recurring thing that I say, is most of collecting is passion. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
Unless you're selling this stuff and you're surplus store, in which case it's a passion and it's a job that you're making money on. But it's a passion. It's a hobby. We want to do this. We want to be here. We want to be collecting these things. And it all kind of goes into each other. The researching, the preserving, the buying on eBay. All these episodes are kind of building on each other in my mind here. So, that's what we're trying to get at. And again, I'll say it again, just our opinions. So we're not right about everything, probably. There's probably stuff that we're wrong about. There's probably facts that we stated in this that we could be wrong about. Although New Vegas is the best Fallout.
It is the best Fallout.
Facts. But it is what it is. So I don't think there's much more for us because I think we've pretty much covered everything.
I think so myself.
This might be a little bit shorter than the last episode, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And because there's no time limit for us, we'll talk for as long as we need to. But
or as long as we want.
Exactly. But I think we're going to call that one good. So I'm glad we have people listening. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. Everyone that's told me that they've enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you again, guys, because it actually means a lot coming, especially a lot of you guys saying a lot of kind words, saying that we're actually doing a great job. It actually means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say thank you.
Yeah, and it's from people, like a lot of the people that tell me this, people I respect. So like, it really makes me feel good. Like,
yeah,
I appreciate it. So we'll continue doing it as long as people listen to it. I mean, we continue doing it anyways. So also, I started live streaming this past weekend. So check me out on Twitch. I'm probably going to be live streaming by the time you hear this, I'll have already been live streaming, but I'll be live streaming during the week mostly after work. So about 12-ish a.m. Eastern, so midnight. So come check me out. I got a camera, so I'm not shy about it. And come chat and we could talk about stuff. I'm going to be playing just all sorts of things. So come on over. And with that, Bailey, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks again.
And you'll be seeing him hopefully a couple more episodes before we lose him for a little while. And
sounds kind of depressing when you say it like that.
Well, I mean, I think people have gotten used to you being here.
Yeah.
And I've gotten used to you being here. You're my semi-permanent host or co-host. So, I've gotten used to it. So with that, I will say goodbye to everyone listening and tune in 2 weeks for another episode.